Hey y'all, welcome and welcome back to my channel. My name is Natea and this is Nesthetics, where I talk about topics that I care about and you should care about too if you choose. Today we are talking about the show Insecure and the 5 lessons that we can learn from this show. The show Insecure aired from 2016 to 2021 and it recently ended in December of 2021 after a 5-season run. So this series is a comedy drama series that focuses on the lives of 4 black women in their 30s, specifically more focused on Issa and her relationships and Molly as well. So without further ado, let's get into the 5 lessons that I think that we can learn from Insecure. So the first lesson is that communication is key. And this is not just for romantic relationships, but just for relationships in general. So we see this a lot with especially Issa and Lawrence with their relationship from the very beginning, from season 1. So we know that in the first season that Issa was turning, I think, 29. It was her birthday and she really wasn't feeling her relationship with Lawrence anymore, and she wanted to step out of the relationship, which she ended up doing, and that ended up making them break up. And Issa really didn't want to break up with Lawrence at that time, and she realized that that was a mistake on her part. But there were a lot of things that Lawrence was doing. He was jobless. He was kind of just sitting around. He was looking for jobs, but he wasn't finding jobs that were, you know, on his level for the degree that he got at his at college. So there was a lack of communication there, and I feel like Issa and Lawrence's relationship, it wouldn't have had those problems if they would have communicated to each other. Issa would have been like, hey, like, I feel like, you know, financially we need to be doing better. Like, I would prefer if you had a job, you know, this and that. And if Lawrence had any problems with Issa, then he could have told her that as well. So I feel like communication is key there, but also in just friendships as well. We see this with Molly and Issa, because I think it was after season 4 when, like, Molly and Issa, they had their little fallout at Issa's block party. And then we go to season 5 and we never see Issa and Molly really have a full conversation about what happened with their friendship and why that specific situation happened, or anybody apologizing. So nobody really wanted to apologize in that situation. I understand why Issa didn't want to apologize, because she's usually the one that always reaches out, and a lot of people did feel like Molly was wrong in that situation, but I think both people had parts in why that friendship had that conflict. So with Issa and Molly, we also see how communication could have fixed their conflict in their friendship. And I feel like Issa and Molly, their friendship is very unique, because even though their friendship did end up thriving, it did end up getting better, we saw at the beginning of season 5 how awkward their friendship was, and how, because they had that lack of communication and they weren't really talking about what was going on, that it was a slow move into their relationship growing again. So not everybody's friendship is going to be like that, or relationship is going to be able to thrive like that without communication. But with Issa and Molly, it was a unique situation where their friendship was still able to flourish, and we were still able to see it to the end. But in real life, I would suggest that communication is key in any relationship for it to thrive, and so that, you know, even if you do have conflict, you can communicate about it so that you can overcome that conflict and make your relationship or friendship stronger. So the second lesson from Insecure, I would say, is follow your passions and go after what you want. So we see this a lot in Insecure, especially with Issa. So Issa, she starts off like at a non-profit organization working there, and we see how unhappy she is with her job. And then by the end of season 5, we see how she is owning her own business, The Block, and she's putting on events that are centered around black culture, and she's doing her own thing and she's thriving. Even though, like, the season jumps a lot of time, we do see how, like, Issa started and now how Issa is ending and continuing to go with her own company. But I feel like even if you are in your 30s, 40s, 50s, no matter how old you are, if you're in a career, if you're doing something that you are not enjoying you should change that. And I'm happy that Issa, she stepped out of her comfort zone and she decided to pursue that business idea that she had, because now it's thriving. And even though like it's not going to be easy in the beginning when you transition from one career to the next, or from one thing to the next in general, it's going to be worth it in the end when you follow your passions. Because if you just continue to do what you don't enjoy doing, then you're going to continue to be unhappy. And I was very happy to see how happy Issa was in her new job, and she's her own boss and she's doing her own thing. So I feel like you should always follow your passions, whether it's career, whether it's anything in your life. If you feel passionate about it and you have an idea, you don't know how it's going to work out, I feel like you should still follow it and try it, because it doesn't hurt to try to see how it'll work out. Because you may be successful, and even if you do fail, you will learn a lesson from that, and you may have to pivot a little bit. But either way, you should never stay in a situation where you are unhappy. You should always follow your passions. We also see this with Lawrence too, just a little bit. Even though Lawrence is a side character in this series, Lawrence, in the beginning of season 1, he was looking for a job that met his expectations. I don't really know what degree Lawrence got, but he was really into like making apps and tech and stuff like that. But the jobs that he was getting, they were like entry-level jobs, and he's like, I have a college degree and whatever, and I feel like I should be working here. So he did have to, like, you know, work at Best Buy for a minute just to earn money. But then eventually we see he gets that big job in San Francisco. Then he gets a job in Los Angeles doing something. You know, we don't really know the full details of Lawrence, just because, like I said, he's a side character. But we do see how Lawrence goes after his passions as well. And I feel like that is a good way to go after your passions, like starting off somewhere, even if you have to start at Best Buy, but knowing that your end goal is to get somewhere else. So I really like how we see how Lawrence has developed through this series, even though we don't get to hear or see the full details of his growth and his development. I personally think that he grew, you know, even though like it's just me inferring that he grew, his character grew. But I like how he also followed his passions as well, and he didn't settle for that job at Best Buy. He decided to, you know, continue to go after the job and the career that he wanted in the tech field. And I wish that we were able to see like his business idea come to life. And I feel like just me thinking about if Insecure were to like go on, even though the show has ended, me just thinking about what Issa and Lawrence's life would look like now, I feel like Lawrence would go after that app finally that he wanted to create. Because now that Issa is like a businesswoman and she's doing her own thing, I feel like she could really help him with him doing his own business, now that she has a little bit of that expertise and she went through that whole process of doing her own business and owning her own business and organization. So I can definitely see Lawrence in the future having his own app like he always wanted to. So I'm happy to see that he followed his passions, Issa followed his passions, and I feel like that's a big lesson in this show, that we should follow our passions and never stay where we are unhappy. The third lesson is that nobody is supposed to understand your story except for you. So this is me specifically talking about how Issa and Lawrence got back together at the end of Insecure. I know that a lot of people did not want to see Issa and Lawrence get back together, but I was always team Issa Law. I was always team Lawrence. I always wanted Issa and Lawrence to get back together. I was always on the team. I was never on the other side. I was always on the team. I was never team Nathan. I was never team whoever else. I was always team Issa and Lawrence. So nobody is supposed to understand your story except for you. Season 5, episode 7. It's the episode with all the ladies. It's Issa, Molly, Kelly, and Tiffany. They're all having a girls' night in. And Tiffany, she mentions to Issa, because Issa is having a conversation about how she saw Condola and Lawrence with their baby and how she felt, and she was like, I dodged a bullet, I made the right decision. And Tiffany's like, did you really make the right decision though? Or, you know, you don't have to make the decision that is right for everybody else. You have to make the decision that sounds right for you, even if it doesn't make sense to everybody else. As long as it makes sense to you, that's what matters.
I loved Lawrence, you know, and y'all know how hard it was for me to let him go. And then when the baby was born, I didn't even reach out.
You made the smart choice.
But why was it the smart choice?
Because she's not trying to be somebody's stepmom. What that look like?
Okay, I get that. But sometimes it's not about making the smart choice. It just has to make sense to you. And it doesn't have to be the smart choice to be the right choice.
And I feel like once I heard Tiffany say that, I just knew that Issa and Lawrence were getting back together at the end of this series. So people are kind of like, you know, why would Issa go back to Lawrence, because that's kind of moving backwards? Why would she just stay single and like do her own thing? She's doing well in her business. But I feel like Issa knew that she wanted to be with Lawrence. Lawrence knew that he wanted to be with Issa. They both knew that they wanted to be with each other. So I feel like there's no reason to stay single or like listen to what other people say just because they're saying that. If your heart is saying that, like, oh, I want to be with this person, then go after what you believe in. Like, nobody else is supposed to understand your decision except for you. So for the people who still don't really understand, like, why would Issa go back to Lawrence, you know, in real life as well, like, nobody is supposed to understand your decisions except for you. It's not a conference call. It's just you making your own decisions, you following your heart. And I feel like Issa knew that she wanted to be happy with Lawrence despite him having a child and everything else. And I feel like that was the ending that Issa deserved. Some people think that she deserved better, but I feel like this is better. Issa and Lawrence, they look happy, they seem happy, and I feel like as long as somebody is happy, they not in no toxic situation, then that's all that matters. So if somebody else is in your ear and they're saying something else and they're saying you shouldn't make this decision, then you can take that advice, but always know nobody is supposed to understand your decisions except for you, and to make the decision that is always right for you, because you come first. The fourth and final, I think I said in the beginning that I was going to say 5 lessons, but it's actually 4. So the fourth and final lesson is that we should fall in love with our insecurities. So we know that this show is called Insecure, and it's called Insecure for a reason. And I feel like in this show we see all of the insecurities of the different characters, especially Issa and her awkwardness, Issa and her indecisiveness, Issa and her inconsistency. We see all of these insecurities with Issa, and she's battling these insecurities. I feel like that's the reason why it took her so long to go back to Lawrence, or to express that she wanted to be with Lawrence even after he had the baby with Condola. So, you know, people always call her inconsistent and that she can't make up her mind. So she was like, okay, I want to stick to one decision. I said I wasn't going to be with Lawrence, so let me not go back to him. And even though like she does have her insecurities, in the end it's okay to have those insecurities, because those make us who we are. It's kind of like the shadow self that some people say, like we all have a shadow self. Like we have our regular self that I guess is like our good side, but then our shadow self are things that we kind of deem as negative traits about ourselves. And I feel like if we don't embrace our shadow side and the negative traits about ourselves, let's say that I am inconsistent or that I struggle with communication, it's not that I'm not trying to work on those things, it's just that I embrace that those are things that I am trying to work on, and those things are a part of me. So everything is a part of me, the negative and the positive. So I feel like this show really shows us that we can embrace our insecurities and use them as our superpowers. Because even though she was Issa was inconsistent and she was unsure. She even said it at the on the last episode when she was talking to Lawrence in that scene where they were like in the block's new building, and she was saying like, I want to try this relationship out. I think she was saying it metaphorically. I want to try this relationship out, but I'm afraid, but I'm willing to give it a try to see if it comes out to be successful and I am happy. So yeah, I feel like this show really shows us that like we should fall in love with our insecurities and embrace them, even with Molly as well. She had a lot of insecurities as well, and I'm happy in the end she ended up getting married, because she was afraid that like men always get tired of her and they don't want to be with her anymore. We do see this throughout the 5 seasons, how men, they kind of thought that Molly got too attached to them quickly, so she fell in love with her insecurities as well, and she expressed them to her romantic partner. So I think that this show just shows us that like it's okay to have insecurities, it's okay to be awkward, it's okay to be inconsistent, but it's just a matter of acknowledging those inconsistencies and insecurities and using them to our advantage. So those are the 4 lessons that I learned from Insecure. I thought I had 5, but I have 4. But those are the 4 main lessons I learned from Insecure, and I really enjoyed watching this show over the 5 seasons. I'm gonna miss this show so much. I hope to see more shows by Issa Rae and with Issa Rae a part of it, whether she's acting in it, whether she's executive producer, whether she's directing, whatever. I want to see more from Issa Rae because this show to me is iconic and I loved it. So let me know in the comments what lessons you learned from Insecure, and if you agree or disagree with some of the lessons that I expressed that I learned from Insecure and that we should take away from the show. So thank you all for watching this video, and I will see y'all in my next one.